My name is Brenda Tabardillo, and I am a doctoral student in education at the University of Montemorelos. The presentation I will share with you is the result of the research titled Psychological and Religious Elements that Influence Well-Being and Academic Engagement in University Students. Psychological well-being and academic engagement are key factors in university students' educational trajectories. Various studies have explored the elements influencing these aspects, highlighting the role of psychological and religious variables. Justification. Anxiety and depression are disorders with high prevalence and comorbidity rates in adolescents. Although schools are a key resource for promoting mental health, there is a shortage of mental disorder prevention programs in this context. University life and education present a series of conditions and demands that generate significant stressors for students' mental health. Addressing university students' well-being has been emphasized in recent decades due to the impact of academic experiences, which predict students' adaptation, academic engagement, and future. In educational institutions, academic performance is often a fundamental pillar of educational quality and a major concern. Guzman Brito, 2012. However, due to the variety of factors affecting it, both positively and negatively, research has focused on cognitive and psychological elements, with little consideration given to religious elements. Currently, in Mexico, it is imperative to design and implement comprehensive student support programs, either through courses integrated into the curriculum or tutoring spaces. These programs should aim to support students' development according to the country's needs and the psycho-emotional skills they possess or need to strengthen. The problem addressed in this study is as follows. The empirical model in which meaning in life, locus of control, depression, academic anxiety, and religious orientation affect psychological well-being, which in turn impacts academic engagement as perceived by university students from 4 Adventist educational institutions in Mexico. Does it fit the theoretical model? General objective. To validate the empirical model in which psychological and religious factors predict psychological well-being, which in turn predicts academic engagement in university students from 4 Adventist educational institutions in Mexico. Specific objectives. First, to diagnose the level of meaning in life, type of locus of control, level of depression, level of academic anxiety, type of religious orientation, level of psychological well-being, and level of academic engagement in students from an Adventist university in Mexico. Second, to infer whether the level of meaning in life affects psychological well-being. Third, to infer whether the type of locus of control affects psychological well-being. Fourth, to infer whether the level of depression affects psychological well-being. Fifth, to infer whether the level of academic anxiety affects psychological well-being. Sixth, to infer whether the type of religious orientation affects psychological well-being. Seventh, to infer whether psychological well-being affects academic engagement. Research hypothesis: the empirical model in which meaning in life, locus of control, depression, academic anxiety, and religious orientation affect psychological well-being, which in turn impacts academic engagement as perceived by university students from 4 Adventist educational institutions in Mexico, fits the theoretical model. The study is quantitative, correlational explanatory, descriptive, cross-sectional, and ex post facto. The participants were 175 students from 4 Adventist universities in Mexico, of whom 50 were men, 28.6%, and 125 were women, 71.4%. The sampling was non-probabilistic and convenience-based. Instruments used: Meaning in life, the PL-10 was used, Garcia Alandete et al. 2013. This instrument consists of 10 items, and the Cronbach's alpha coefficients for the full scale and each dimension are shown in the table. Locus of control, the Berger scale, 1966, was used, a 10-item instrument. The Cronbach's alpha coefficients for the full scale and each dimension are shown in the table. Depression, self-developed. A self-developed instrument assessing depression in 3 dimensions was used. It consists of 25 items, and the Cronbach's alpha coefficients for the full scale and each dimension are shown in the table. Additionally, the 3 factors obtained in the exploratory factor analysis are presented in the table. Academic anxiety, authorship. A self-developed instrument, academic anxiety, in 4 dimensions was used. It consists of 22 items, and the Cronbach's alpha coefficients for the full scale and each dimension are shown in the table. Additionally, the 4 factors obtained in the exploratory factor analysis are presented in the table. Religious orientation, authorship. A self-developed instrument. Religious orientation in 4 dimensions was used: intrinsic, search, extrinsic social, and extrinsic personal. The instrument consists of 16 items, and the Cronbach's alpha coefficients for the full scale and each dimension are shown in the table. Additionally, the 4 factors obtained in the exploratory factor analysis are presented in the table. Psychological well-being. The PERMA Profiler scale was used, adapted from Butler and Kern, 2016. This instrument consists of 23 items and 7 dimensions. The Cronbach's alpha coefficients for the full scale and each dimension are shown in the table. Academic engagement. The UWESS short version was used, Schaufeli et al. 2002. This instrument consists of 9 items and 3 dimensions. The Cronbach's alpha coefficients for the full scale and each dimension are shown in the table. On this slide, the operationalization of the null hypothesis and the variables is presented. The statistical test applied was structural equation modeling, and the model fit coefficients are found in the last column of Table 11. Results. Based on chi-square data, the model does not fit the empirical research data. The theoretical model showed an approximate fit with the empirical data. Of the 5 fit indices analyzed, the criteria were met for relative chi-square and PNFI. while the other 3 indices approach the recommended threshold. In this situation, we can conclude that the model has an approximate fit with the empirical data. The model analysis reveals a significant predictive capacity in 5 of the 6 predictive relationships within the model. Academic anxiety does not have a significant effect on psychological well-being. The predictive capacity of meaning in life on psychological well-being is 0.25. Internal locus of control is 0.22. Depression is negative 0.38. And religious orientation is 0.16. These factors explain 63% of the total variance in psychological well-being. Finally, the most significant predictive capacity is that of psychological well-being on academic engagement at 0.72, explaining 52% of the total variance in academic engagement. In conclusion, the model exhibited an approximate fit with the empirical data. One possible reason for the model not achieving a better fit could be the small number of subjects and the lack of homogeneity in the sample, given that students from 4 universities located in different regions of Mexico participated. However, despite this lack of fit, it was observed that 5 of the study variables possess significant predictive capabilities. Ultimately, psychological well-being accounts for a considerable portion of the total variance in academic engagement. I share the references used for this presentation. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this event, and I appreciate your attention during my presentation. God bless you.